Welcome back to the Sports Booth YouTube channel. Yes, last week we looked at the All Blacks 2023 Rugby World Cup squad. Today, the Wallabies 2023 Rugby World Cup squad. Now, with this one, we've probably got a little bit more information than the All Blacks one, purely because Eddie Jones has named his April camp a couple of weeks ago. So we kind of know the players and the direction he's looking in. However, saying that, we're going to take it all in and see what we can kind of come up with as a team, as a squad that we think Eddie might pick, put our Eddie Jones cap on this time and see how we go with that. We've done this the exact same as we did the All Blacks one, where we went and found a list of all the players that had played, kind of dating all the way back to 2008, where Quade Cooper was the last kind of surviving player from that group, and went down and said who's in contention and who's not. So there's obviously players who have retired from the game, left the game, are out. Those like Will Guinea, Kurtley Beale, Rob Simmons, going all the way down to Ire Simone and Curtis Rona, who chances are they aren't going to be selected as one of the international players. So those were our group, a list of players that are not able to be selected or are not going to get selected because they're overseas, retired, not playing rugby anymore. Then we have a group of players who I've considered out of contention purely because either they're playing for someone else or an international player who's probably not going to get selected. The two Moana Pacifica players is Christian Lealifano, Sekope Kepu, probably not going to get selected for Australia anytime soon, retired kind of from that duty. Matt Tamua, probably not going to get selected, along with Scott Seo, highly unlikely they select him. And a couple more. I've included Rory Arnold in this for now, just because I think with everything that's going on, I just think he's already out of contention to be one of those players selected. So saying that, we were left with slightly more than the All Black squad. So when I did this, we were left with about 59, 58 players to kind of select from. A couple of easy selections we could kind of cross off, but they're still in contention. A couple that maybe could be making debuts. I don't see anyone taking that step up, but we never know. And I kind of wanted to look into that as well. Using the same metrics as we did for the All Blacks one, we're going to select the same players or the same position players from last World Cup. Now, I know it's a different coach completely, but I just feel this works well and satisfies what the Wallabies did last World Cup to this World Cup. That means we'll be selecting 3 hookers, 5 props, 4 locks, 5 loosies, 2 halfbacks, 2 fly halves, 4 centres, 4 wingers, and 2 fullbacks. Looking into the hookers, I think there's a clear-cut number 1 in Dave Poriki for the Waratahs. Having another season where you can show that consistency and his ability to back up what he did last season. So I think he's a clear-cut number 1 for the World Cup. The other 2 positions are open for me, and I think one player's stepped up big time. Obviously, Folau Fainga moving from the Brumbies to the Force has opened up the opportunity for Lachlan Lonergan to really put his hand up, and that he has. He scored the tries that Folau would have scored in the back of that Brumbies maul. He's proven to me that he can hit the line out enough. I just think his name has to be in there, so I've gone Poriki, Lonergan, and my 1-2 option. The 3 options totally up for grabs. You've got Tolu Latu, Jordan Uese, Folau Fainga, and Billy Pollard. And I think this is where Eddie Jones looks as that third option, with 2 safe options there as an athletic one. And so it's either Folau Fainga, injured at the moment, if he can get back into form, probably the third option. Or I really like Billy Pollard and taking him along onto this World Cup. We've seen he has the ability to do it at the Brumbies level, at Super Rugby level. And can he take that step up to the Wallabies? Big question mark, but I think it'll be a great experience to build for the 2027 World Cup on Australian home soil, getting him this experience now. The props, 4 very easy choices as far as I'm concerned. There's 2 obviously injured, bracketed ones, which are the 2 young ones, Angus Bell and Taniela Tupou. Those 2 go if they're fit. Then you've got Alan Alatoa and James Slipper. So then there's the 1 prop spot open. Obviously, he selected Blake Shoup for this squad. You've got Matt Gibbon, who's playing incredibly well. Pone Fa'amusuli is also playing really well for the Rebels. And then you got Harry Johnson-Holmes, kind of coming back off an injury, who was putting his hand up towards the end of last year. There's also Sam Talakai and Tom Robinson from the Force, who are there or thereabouts. So a lot of options that last spot. For me, the way that Matt Gibbon's been playing is too hard to ignore. I've selected Matt Gibbon as that 5th option. I think, there's enough depth there where those 2 injured players, I'm happy with any of the replacements that come in. but I think Matt Gibbons earned that. If he can continue the way he's playing for Super Rugby at the moment, earned that opportunity to play for the Wallabies at the World Cup. The locks are an interesting one. There's no doubt about that. Probably the weakest point on Australian soil. I think the two Brumbies ones, Caden Neville and Nick Frost, both have to be in there. So those two are easy. They're playing well enough for the Brumbies to deserve it, showing they're the best. You've got then Jed Holloway and Ned Hennigan putting their hands up for the Tars. I don't think any of the Reds ones have put their hands up enough to deserve it. Then you've got a couple injured locks sitting and waiting in the wings. Isaac Rodda and Matt Phillip. Isaac, obviously, for the Force, and Matt Phillip for the Rebels. Both haven't had the best years just because of injuries. Then you've got Darcy Swain, who's kind of sitting in the wings with the Brumbies. And then you've got, Will Skelton, the big name, overseas. The issue, obviously, is the Giddo law. I'm not going to harp on too much about that. But I haven't selected Will Skelton because I've selected 3 different players. If they choose not to select one of those players, one of those other players gets injured, Will Skelton would be in there for me as one of the locks. But for this example, he's not. So I've gone Nick Frost, Caden Neville. Isaac Rodda, for me, gets in there even just on talent alone. Obviously, not a lot of game time, but I think he'll work his way back and into the team. The last one I've gone is Jed Holloway. I think Ned Hannigan's actually playing better than him at the moment, but Jed, to me, that's a safe option, a good number 6 option as well, has played it for the Wallabies. I think good for the camp, good for the team, so I've gone Jed Holloway, and unfortunately Matt Phillip misses out. The loosies and the flankers. This was an interesting kind of look into it. I think you've got 3 names pretty easily make that squad. So you've got Michael Hooper, I think guaranteed to make the squad. Don't know about the start at 7. Pete Samu has to make the squad on my belief. And Rob Valentini is the most obvious choice of all time. So then you have 2 spots open. I think his belief in Lange Gleeson has been shown as he's picked him for the squad. So I think he'll end up going with Lange Gleeson and the natural freak that Lange Gleeson is. Then that leaves 1 spot open. So I've got 3 players that are kind of bracketed here. Harry Wilson, Fraser McWright, and Rob Leota. Now, Rob Leota, picking him gives us another locking option as well. So it kind of gives us a bit more depth there. Again, another injured one for the Rebels at the moment. When he comes back, what form he is in may decide that. Fraser Wright would be our guaranteed second option as a number 7, but I think Pete Samu showed that he can do that just fine without, if Michael Hooper was to be out. So I'm not really too worried about having a reserve 7. Harry Wilson has played well enough as a number 8 to deserve an opportunity in there. But in the end, I'm predicting that Rob Leota gets back into form and plays really well for the Rebels when he comes back and therefore gets selected. So my 5 are Pete Samu, Rob Valentini, Michael Hooper, Lange Gleeson, and Rob Leota. Only being able to select 2 halfbacks is really tough when you break it down. Obviously, he selected Nick White, Ryan Lonergan for this camp. When I look at it, I see Nick White's guaranteed. I just think he's guaranteed Nick White starting halfback for the Wallabies. You've got Jake Gordon. And then I think the wild card is Tate McDermott. Tate McDermott should be a Wallaby. He's showing he can play at that level. I think he brings a spark off the bench. So if I'm taking 2 halfbacks, I'm taking Tate McDermott and Nick White. I just can't see Eddie Jones going in any other direction other than that. The fly half position is so open in Australian rugby right now. And of course, is one of the biggest positions, most important positions on the rugby field. Quade Cooper, Bernard Foley, Carter Gordon, Ben Donaldson, Noah Lolosio are the 5. James O'Connor, if you want to chuck him in there as well, are the 5 or 6 that you're looking at, has to go into 2. If Quade Cooper's fit, I think Eddie goes Quade Cooper. What Quade did when he came back from Japan, those first few times Rooney has selected him, I think has Eddie Jones thinking about it. But Eddie did say something pretty important when Rory Arnold selected not to come back and play out his contract, even though his team was no longer playing, that you have to be playing rugby. And so with Quade Cooper probably not going to have the most fantastic build-up to the World Cup, how fit he'll be and how easily he'll adapt to that may decide. So if Quade Cooper's not there, it's a Noah Lolosio, Ben Donaldson, Bernard Foley, Carter Gordon battle. Carter Gordon, the way he's playing Super Rugby right now, deserves a shot. I think Eddie Jones gives him a shot during the Rugby Championship, see how he goes. If he succeeds there, if he does well there, he's in there. So the 2 I've kind of got selected now are Quade Cooper and Carter Gordon. You could literally chuck Noah Lolosio, Ben Donaldson, and Bernard Foley all in there, and I wouldn't be surprised with Eddie Jones. So I've gone with those 2. I think those 2, I think Carter Gordon finishes off the season well, has a good rugby championship, gets his name selected. I think Quade Cooper gets back to fitness and Eddie will select him. If he doesn't, I see him sticking with another homegrown talent and bringing Will Skelton in the locking department and Jed Holloway slipping out there. So a couple of ifs and buts, I guess, with that one. The centres were I'm going to say, pretty easy for me to select as far as I was concerned. There was only one real tough decision. Samu Kerevi, guaranteed. Len Ekitau, guaranteed. Lalakai Feketi, guaranteed in my mind. Those three go. You've got your 212, so you're looking for a 13. The 13 options, I think, are Josh Fluke and Izzy Parisi. Izzy Parisi hasn't been quite in the form he was in last year with the Waratahs, and that can happen with coming back from injury. If Josh Fluke plays well enough for the rest of the year, does well in this Australian camp, I see them going with Fluke. But I'm a fan of Parisi when he's on form. I think he's an X-factor. But I think Eddie Jones ends up going with Fluke, not because I think he's a better player, but I just think coming back from injury, unless Parisi has a really strong end this year with the Waratahs, I see him going with Fluke. Because the Aussies have chosen to take 2 halfbacks, we get 4 wingers, which makes my life a little bit easier. Marika Korobeti, easy, done, selected. Andrew Callaway has to go in my mind as well, so he's selected. Mark Ngawanganitawase, I think, has to go as well. His form's still been at that high level as it was last year towards the end for the Wallabies. For the Waratahs, although the wins haven't been coming, I think he ends up getting selected as the 3rd one. I've gone Reece Hodge, and I want this bracketed because you'll understand when I get to the explaining of the team when I talk about the fullbacks. So I've gone Reece Hodge as the 4th winger. The 2 fullbacks then leave me with Jordan Bataia, who I think is playing his best footy for the Reds. I think he played at the best at fullback. I understand why they tried to move him to the wing and get Jock Campbell in because they weren't winning games, but I think Jordan Bataia at fullback is the smart money for Eddie Jones. And then I've gone Tom Wright. Tom Wright, obviously, winger or fullback. And this is where the Reece Hodge kind of comes into it. With all those 3 able to play wing fullback, I think that solves a lot of issues to me. And I think Reece Hodge is a Mr. Fix-It man. The ability he has to play, 12, 13, both wings and fullback, and can slot into 10 if need be. I think he has to be part of your 31-man squad for his utilisation. So saying all that, let's run through the team I would be selecting if the Wallabies, everyone was healthy from the 31 I've selected and playing in a Rugby World Cup final tomorrow. This is the team I'd be going with. At prop, easy. James Slipper, number 1. Dave Porecki, number 2. Easy selection there too. 3, Alan Alatoa. I start with the experienced heads to start off the final. 4 and 5, Caden Neville, Nick Frost. Easy as well. I think the 2 Brumbies players do really well there. 6, Rob Valentini. 7, Michael Hooper. 8, Pete Samu. Change Valentini and Samu as you like. I don't mind. I also don't mind the idea of starting Langy Gleeson at 8 and Samu being on the bench, because what that brings to this team is the ability to make that sub and Samu go into any position, and we've seen the impact he can make off the bench. 9, Nick White. 10, Quade Cooper. 11, Marika Korobeti. 12, Samu Kerevi. 13, Len Ekitau. 14, Andrew Callaway. And 15, Jordan Bataia. On the bench, I've gone with 16, Lachlan Lonergan, 17, Angus Bell, 18, Taniela Tupou, the 2 young props on the bench, 19, Isaac Rodder, 20, Rob Leota, solves us with ability to play 6, ability to play 8 as well, also can play lock, so if 2 of the locks went down, you're pretty safe there. Tate McDermott in 21. 22, I've gone with a specialist first 5 reserve in Carter Gordon. And then 23, I've gone Reece Hodge. It wouldn't mind, and when I first did this team, I went Reece Hodge in 22 and Tom Wright in 23. It wouldn't surprise me if that happens with Hodge's ability to play 10. But I think they want a specialist 10 of Quade Cooper, an old body getting to the end of the tournament. And Reece Hodge, you can plug and play anywhere. My idea is that backline doesn't make changes unless necessary, is the way I'm seeing it. So that is my 23, Wallaby final team and 31 squad for the Rugby World Cup. What do you make of my predictions? If you like these videos, they come out every Sunday. Please feel free to subscribe. Give us a like, comment everything that you think I went right or wrong. Am I crazy? Am I stupid for leaving a player out? Let me know. For now, thank you for joining me. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.